testing. So let's get started. Good evening and welcome to the first of what we hope will be one or more town halls featuring the primary Democratic candidates for this important District 10 congressional race. The event was organized by the workforce with a heck of a lot of effort from Michael Pefley, who's from the Northern Dauphin Dems, but it's also sponsored by 5051 South Central Young Dems, stewards of Cumberland County, young professionals of color, and 1PA. All three active candidates were invited. We're pleased to have two tonight, William Lulich, a previous candidate for the 10th 2 years ago, and Commissioner Justin Douglas. We hope future events will include the third candidate, Janelle Stelson, and perhaps a potentially new candidate from York County by the name of Titus Williams. We don't know much about him yet. We've not even been able to get hold of him. We'll see if that candidacy develops. Nevertheless, tonight we are pleased to hear from two. The purpose of this and future events is to give voters an opportunity to interact with, hear from the candidates, hear their positions on various issues so that we can make a solid choice in May about who's going to run against you-know-who in November. The format for tonight's event will involve members of key community constituencies who will ask one question each to the candidates. After the question and answering is done, then each candidate will have 3 minutes for a closing statement. The event will be moderated by Tawanda Stallworth, a current candidate for state representative from the PA 199th District. And a little bit about Tawanda. She's from the Carlisle area, where her family dates back 7 generations. I think I get Southern from the Irish side, the immigrants, so your family's been there a while. She's program manager at the Penn State Dickinson Law School. She has degrees from Albrecht College in organizational and applied psychology and a Master of Divinity degree from Lancaster Theological Seminary. And in a moving piece of self-disclosure, Tawanda will point out that she's taken the necessary actions to restore her life from abuse, addiction, and incarceration. And because of that, she has the necessary skills to restore the district and bring opportunity and access back to the place that she and many others are proud to call home. So on that note, I'm going to turn things over to Tawanda, who will introduce the various participants and then begin the question and answer. Thank you. And we only have one microphone, so we'll have to pass it around.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Is this coming through? Maybe is the bass too high? I'm good. All right, got you. All right, fantastic. Good evening, everyone. It is that was weak. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right, and I'm the timekeeper, so I won't start my time until I get good and into it. It is indeed a pleasure to be here with you all this evening. I am Tawanda Stallworth, and I am a very proud Carlilian. And my family does go back there 7 generations. And looking around and seeing that things were broken and knowing that I have a skill set for problem solving, I had no choice but to get into this race. And so I am delighted to be here with these gentlemen and to explore some issues that are very near and dear to my heart. I tell folks all the time, particularly on this campaign trail, that for me affordability is not political, it is very personal. My husband operates a forklift for one of the warehouses in Cumberland County. And so on my way here, we were having a conversation about what were we going to eat for dinner, and were we going to have the leftovers from Sunday, or because I didn't have time to cook, and were we going to maybe try to order something, and he's paying a car payment this week, and so how does that affect our bottom line? And I work at the law school. My husband operates a forklift, and when I tell you that affordability is not political for me in my household, affordability is personal. And so we are right now looking at our prescription deductibles, and not meeting our prescription deductibles for the year. They just reset. And how are we going to be able to make things come together for us? So I am very honored by this opportunity to engage in the conversation that we all need to be talking about right now. We will not allow others to co-opt this conversation. In other words, those who are closest to the pain, indeed our participants here this evening, have direct lived experience and communication with the issues, and these are the issues that we need to discuss. So I am really excited about this opportunity. I think about this being the modern civil rights movement, and we can look back on the Freedom Riders, and we can look back on the times in our country's history where significant segments of the population experienced hardship. And we can look back on those times and say, oh, that would have been an easy decision for me. I know what I would have been doing. I know what role I would have been playing. And so this is our opportunity now in 2026 to think about what is it that we are doing. And so after tonight, if you have questions for the candidates, I'm sure that they would be delighted to answer any questions that we don't get to tonight. But I do want to make sure, because we have so many participants, so many great organizations represented, that we do get to hear from everyone this evening. And so with that, I'll invite our candidates to introduce themselves, and they will each have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. And I'll go in the alphabet.
Hello everyone, my name is Justin Douglas. I am currently a county commissioner for the county you're in right now, Dauphin County. I've been doing that. I ran in 2023, which took my oath of office in January of 2024. And look, what motivated me to run for this is that in May last year, I experienced the realities of ICE, especially in our Bhutanese Nepali community, and them deporting individuals very quickly with very little due process. Families didn't get an opportunity to visit their loved ones. I got the opportunity to broker a meetup in Pike County because our warden had a relationship with the Pike County warden where they were prepping these individuals for deportation. And I watched families as we went on that trip say goodbye to their loved ones for likely the very last time as they got sent back to a country that ethnically cleansed them a few decades before. And it showed me the reality of the moment that we're in. You know, I think authoritarianism is a very strong word, but it's a very accurate word for what we're dealing with right now with our federal government. And as people asked me to consider running for this, it became more and more apparent that we needed another choice, a choice that's willing to take this fight to Washington. I'm the only one in this race with elected experience. I've been fighting here in Dauphin County corruption and fighting for better standards in our prison. I'm ready to take that same fight to Washington, and I hope you get to learn more about me tonight. Thanks.
Good. Okay, good. I usually have trouble with these. Hi, my name's William Lillick. I'm also running for lieutenant. I grew up here. We moved here in 1996, I believe it was. There was a blizzard. I rode like 4 feet of snow. I lived here until I was about 18, 19, and then I joined the Army. I was a military policeman. I did that for the better part of 10 years. I did 2 tours in Baghdad, Iraq. One was more of a combat-oriented tour, and the second one was detainee operations. So when we talk about ICE, like I know what detainee operations are supposed to look like, and that is not what is happening. This is not detaining operations. So I'm standing up here today because I'm desperate. I'm desperate because I don't see a future for me here. And I've already been priced out of this area. Me and my girlfriend of 10 years had to move to Danville. If you don't know where Danville is, it's about an hour and a half north of here. It's a small mountain town. We are still paying $1,200 a month in rent for 800 square feet in a small mountain town. I have a 19-year-old son. He works at Amazon. That's probably the best job he's going to get for a while, because that is the future that we have set up for our children. And it's not something that can continue. It's not sustainable. We can't have generations of children that can't afford to pay rent, let alone buy a house. We can't have a generation of children that can't afford to go to school or buy their groceries when they're 18. We need candidates and representatives that will represent you. We don't need fundraisers. We have plenty of fundraisers in the Democratic Party. We need representatives, people from this area that know your pain, okay? We don't need somebody who takes polls to know what your problems are, or to guess, or that even needs to ask you. Okay, I can look at anybody in this room and almost guarantee I know what some of your problems are. How many here are paycheck to paycheck, or almost paycheck to paycheck? Okay, yeah, not even paycheck to paycheck anymore, right? We are in the red, and it's just happened over the last year. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not the perfect candidate. I'm not a perfect guy. I might not even be the best candidate, but I'm the best candidate for the moment, okay? And that's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you both for those introductions. I should warn you,
It's just a little hard to hear back.
it's hard for me to hear too.
Yeah, it also has a weird reverb there. Even when I was talking.
I think it,
Might be dropped it.
so will this do until we figure it out? So that we can stay on time? All right, great. You know, there were a couple of themes that I think stood out for me. Try it now. Try it now.
Is that better?
Try it now. No? Yes? So there were a couple of things that stood out for me from both of our candidates' introductions. And I think it's important that we remember, particularly in this moment, that we are not in a moment of Democrat versus Republican. Right? And I would even say that we are not in a moment of individual versus collective. But we are in a moment of good versus evil. And I think that as we go forward and remember that we do not have a pure democracy in this country, but what we have is a republic. And so it is very important that we have the folks that are representing us be our representatives, those with lived experience and those who are most qualified to represent the concerns that are affecting us the most. And so that really sticks out for me as we move forward, that we recognize the moment that we're in and how that frames our understanding of this hyper-individualized and individualistic society that we live in, ushering us right into the moment that we have all, that we all are experiencing. And so with that, I will invite our first participant. Is this better? It is, okay. I will invite our first participant to ask a question. Aisha Mobley is a proud resident of the greater Harrisburg area, where she has resided for over 51 years. You're not that
I'm 53.
Oh, okay. She is the daughter of retired Harrisburg School District educators Isom and Anita Mobley. Aisha is also the mother of 3 young adults who are also in the helping field. She believes in servant leadership, and she demonstrates that in both her employment and her community affiliations. Aisha currently serves as Director of Outpatient Programs for Nasser Victory Consulting Group Incorporated, located at 1500 North 2nd Street, 3rd floor, Suite 23. Aisha is also the Pennsylvania Engagement Leader for Breadcoin Foundation, Ltd. providing food security with dignity for all. Breadcoin is neighbor-funded, supporting our local vendors and human service agencies. Aisha, let me hear from you. And following your question, each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond, and they may follow up with you for clarification. And you're the first one to go, so we'll see how this goes, and if we need to pivot, we'll go from there. All right, thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity, and you do my introduction also, thank you. Okay, so Donald Trump and his MAGA followers, can you all hear me? Donald Trump and his MAGA followers have made it clear they intend to persecute African Americans in every way they can, especially Black women. They have plotted to take away our jobs, smear our reputations, and even disappear our history. All of this is making it harder every day for Black families to provide for their children, housing, food, and education. If you are elected to Congress, what will you do about it? Thank you.
That's a very good question, and it's a lot of problems all at once. Thank you. So I've been saying the same thing for a while now. I had an epiphany, I guess. And let's say I'm elected tomorrow. If we maintain the House of Representatives the way it is, we don't have a majority, right? So no legislation is passed. Okay, let's say we get the majority. Well, there's still a Republican majority in the Senate. Nothing is passed. Okay, let's say we get the Senate. We've got the presidency. It's vetoed. We've got the Supreme Court. So I'm not going to say there's no policy that we can pass to fix anything, because that's kind of a lazy answer. But the reality is we need to do a coup. Okay, Donald Trump did 3 coups, 2.5. Okay, he did a coup of the Republican Party. That was the first step. He took over the Republican Party. He tried to do a coup on January 20th. It failed. January 6th, I'm sorry. And then he did another coup when he regained the presidency and took over the entire federal government. So what the Democratic Party needs to do first is our own coup. We need to stack the Democrat Party with Democrats again. And until we do that, nothing gets done.
Thank you.
Aisha, thank you for the question. And for those of you who don't know, you should definitely check out Breadcoin. It's a really great program that helps unhoused people and those with food insecurity. I'm going to go ahead and stand up. This is really hard to talk into for some reason. It's like an echo, but let's start here. Look, you know what? I'm just going to holler, because I can holler better, and like it's really distracting. It's like buzzing in my ear. I'm a musician, and so it bothers me, the auditory. All right, here's what I would say. We have to ask the question of the racism that's referenced. Is it a bug or is it a feature? It's not something we can fix or moderate with Donald Trump. It's been a feature of him since he came down the stairs, right? The first thing he said was some very disparaging things about immigrants. And ever since then, he's continued to say disparaging things about all kinds of people groups, but very rarely white people that look like me. So it's not a bug that we need to try to fix or reform or try to work with or try to moderate. It's a feature. Until we hold accountable through obvious, clear red lines in the sand of like what I feel like the Republican Party does is they put a line in the sand that's too far, and then he crosses it, and then they're like, okay, there's a new line, and this happens over and over and over again until they have no morality left. They have no, decency left. I look back at the post that he made about the Obamas. Anybody who's a leader that makes that post on accident, they go out and show contrition. I didn't see the end of it, but I'm responsible for what gets posted to my page. I am so sorry. I've already called the Obamas and apologized. And I don't want to just apologize to the Obamas. I want to apologize to the entire African American community who saw that and felt the sting and dehumanization of racism. That's what an actual leader would do if they cared. if it was actually an accident. It wasn't an accident, it was intentional. And we need people in Congress who are going to call that out every time it happens and going to fight for representation, for our districts to be represented in Washington. And this district has a rich history of African American culture and history here. I just watched the Ephraim Slaughter drama going on at Gamut Theater right now. And the rich history that exists here in this region needs to be something we take to Washington and we fight for everyone's rights and for human dignity in general. And so what can I do specifically when it comes to legislation? Look, here's the problem. He's going to have the veto. But I think we continue to call out, point out, and talk like I'm talking right now publicly every time he does something racist or dehumanizing. Thank you.
You just said it 30 seconds.
Okay.
I can keep going.
Okay, all right. That was a great question, and I'm just reminded that, you know, folk don't pick on people that, unless there's a reason. And so I'm just mindful that there is significant political power among Black women. And that is something I think that the Democratic Party could do well to pay attention to, not only as a force to be reckoned with, but also as an asset, and the asset that we have been to this country. I couldn't not comment on that because I'm sitting here in this skin and in this body. And so I recognize where that question comes from, so I thank you. Our next question will come from Ann Bruner. Did I say that right? Yep. All right. Ann is a retired librarian and library manager in the Dauphin County Library System and a lifelong advocate for education and literacy. Personally, as a wife, mother, and grandmother, and with a heart for justice, she brings a deep investment in public education, libraries, museums, reading, and lifelong learning. And we will invite you to ask your question at this time, and we'll ask Commissioner Douglas to give the first response.
I know I can't.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I cannot holler that loud. Is this on? Can everybody hear me?
No.
It's
No?
not.
Okay. Oh. Okay. Is it on now? Oh, yes. Okay, it is. All right. Okay. I have a fairly long introduction because I learned a lot when I was looking up some information about where are we in education and library funding. Excuse me. The Trump administration has waged a year-long assault to fire employees and gut and dismantle the Department of Education. And an executive order terminated all grants by the IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, which particularly hurt small and rural libraries. This action was deemed unlawful and funds were restored by court order. And Congress has restored some of the critical Department of Ed responsibilities and funding. But immense damage has been done, and the attacks on public education, student services, libraries, and museums will likely continue. So my question is, representing the PA-10, how would you work to restore, rebuild, or reorganize to prioritize the educational resources critically needed by our communities and our democracy?
I'm going first, but I'm not using the mic.
Okay,
there we
that's
go.
right.
All right, education. My wife is an educator. She's a third grade teacher in Harrisburg. Seeing them and what they're doing to gut right now the Department of Education is incredibly concerning. It's concerning because this is the future. This is the individuals who are ultimately, the more and more they get educated, the better we have educated members of our society, the better we're going to do as America. And so the idea that we're going to divest from this is going to have a massive impact. But at the same time, authoritarian leaders don't want an educated population. So it's totally on break. Look, I also want to just take this moment because of this question to note that we're currently in a charter school. and the realities of siphoning funds from public schools to charter schools. Look, I'm going to show up wherever there's a debate like that, so it could be anywhere. I'm going to show up. But I have to say, we're seeing even a problem at the state level of funds being drawn out of our public school system and into even charter schools and people wanting legislation for private schools. I'm adamantly against that. We need to protect every dollar of funding. And here's the deal. Congress is the purse strings for the federal government. We need to start throwing our weight around. We need to sue the administration when they choose to gut stuff that we've authorized gets paid for. That needs to be the approach. The posture does not need to be one of negotiation. It needs to be one that says, this money was allocated for this purpose and it needs to stay here.
I'm a little raspy today, so I'm going to use the microphone. We're in this for the long haul. The Department of Education is gutted, and the people that are left are MAGA. So, again, even if I took over as president tomorrow, like these problems are going to take a generation to fix, at least. So the start is, like I said, we need to get Democrats in Congress that are going to actually address these problems first. And the problem that we have is the Democrats that we're putting in Congress have no interest in addressing these problems. So funding schools and libraries, those are liberal values, right? It shouldn't be a problem to elect a Democrat that will fund education, but for whatever reason, it seems like we have that problem. Look, I'm a ninth grade dropout, but that just makes education more important to me. School's not for everybody. It wasn't for me, but there also weren't any other options. We didn't have charter schools back then. We had vocational schools, but I think you had to pay to go to one. So my options personally were very limited, and this is important to me because I struggled as an adult thinking I was stupid because I only had a GED and I went into the Army. When I was 32, I got into Mensa. It's a genius club. So it's really frustrating to see other kids go through that when they're, yeah, that buzzing, I hear it. Yeah, so, it's really frustrating to see other kids struggle like that when the answer is just they need more options and more funding. I want to talk about libraries specifically because a problem I'm having in my life is a lack of free spaces. And it's hard to find places to just go and exist with no expectation of spending money, especially in this economy when nobody has any fucking money. So we need more libraries to get with. They shouldn't be shutting them down, we should be building them up. Now when I say that too, the one thing Danville does have going for it is it has a beautiful library. And that's what we need to do. My sister just came back from London, and she was telling me about the architecture, and it was beautiful, and it's like, it's not like America. America's thrown in the trash. So we need culture too, and that's where education and libraries come from. America needs culture, and I feel like right now we don't really have it.
Thank you both for that answer. I think that we can all agree that not only is education and public education very important. I'm very proud of the public. I'm very proud of the public education that I received from the Carlisle Area School District. Go Herd. That's fine. Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Holden. I'm very proud of that public education, but this question also had libraries wrapped up into it, and I think it's important that we recognize the role that libraries play in our communities, not only from an educational perspective, but also from a social service perspective. And I think oftentimes we think that there are entities in our communities that take care of certain things. Libraries are where you go and read books, but libraries are often where folks go to get out of the cold. Okay? And so we have to have conversations, I think, that are more robust and more comprehensive when we think about the different services that our agencies provide in our community. Our next question comes from Kiera Hopkins Dawood. Did I do that right?
You got it.
All right, good. Kiera is an educator, domestic violence advocate, and national expert in officer-involved domestic violence, dedicated to exposing abuse of power and amplifying survivor voices through her work with Survive and Tell. She is an award-winning speaker who has presented internationally, equipping communities, agencies, and institutions with trauma-informed strategies for accountability and prevention. Kiera, your question, please.
Thank you, Tawanda, for your introduction. Thank you, Michael, for your invitation to ask this question, and thank you for being here to answer the question. My question is, in officer-involved domestic violence prevention, we acknowledge that wearing a badge does not eliminate risk. Instead, it increases the need for oversight. Given debates around 287G agreements and state participation in federal immigration enforcement, do you believe Congress should expand these programs, restrict them, or condition funding on stronger independent review mechanisms and guardrails? Please be specific.
So 5 years ago, I would have had a different answer. There normally is a role for local police to play in immigration, sometimes, right? But that's not what's happening right now. We are not doing immigration enforcement with ICE. That is not the situation. So, like I said, 5 years ago, my answer would be, ICE should cooperate with local PD to do their jobs. If that was the case today, I would say the same thing. But ICE needs to go. There's just no room for it. They serve a redundant function. They are 20 years old. I was 20 years old when ICE was formed. So it's not like this long-standing traditional law enforcement agency. It was started in 2003 and post 9/11 Islamophobia kind of thing. So to answer your question, it would be no. I don't think that police should be working with ICE at this point because I don't think ICE should exist at this point.
Raise your hand if you ever watched The West Wing. Anybody know The West Wing? If not, you should go to Netflix, give it a watch. It's a great show. In The West Wing, the very first episode that they have, if you don't know what this is, it's about the White House. West Wing probably gave it away if you didn't know, sorry, spoiler. But basically, in this, they're dealing with the crisis of Cubans coming in on rafts. There's no ICE, there's no DHS, because it hadn't existed yet. And many of us raised our hands that we watched that show. This is a relatively new agency, and it's operating with extraordinary power. So when you talk about expanding or allowing that 287G agreements to expand, I'm adamantly against that. And I've brought a welcoming county resolution to Dauphin County, which unfortunately was voted down. But ultimately, I'm going to continue to fight for limited participation in civilian detainers. In 2 years as a commissioner, I've only seen ICE produce a judicial warrant once. And I was reached out to by the warden and asked, are we going to hold? And I said, of course, it's a judicial warrant. We would hold like that for any other agency, and we should hold. Almost all that you're seeing ICE do is with civil detainers, and this really does matter. Look, the amount of money that we are spending right now on this enforcement, and the reality that when you talk about accountability, you can have Americans executed in the streets of America, and before the sun goes down, their characters are assassinated by this administration. Being called a domestic terrorist without any investigation or any knowledge of who they are, they know they can operate with no accountability. So the first thing we need to do is we need to reopen Section 1983, and we need to add and ensure that federal officers are included. If you don't know what Section 1983 is, in the late 1800s, they put in a law that said you have the ability to sue a municipal officer or a state officer, law enforcement, if they violate your constitutional rights. So if your constitutional rights are violated, you have recourse to get, to sue them for money. The only way we're going to stop ICE is if we open that law up to include federal officers, because believe it or not, they were written out of that law. They were never put in that law. They need to be in that law, because then they'll think twice before they violate your rights, because they might actually have to pay out of their pocket. And so these are the ways we can begin. And what I would say is we need to do that and then let the president veto it. Let him go on record vetoing it. So we need to do a lot of things that we get on the record where this party stands. Because this is just common sense. Every American believes police should be accountable, like the majority. The majority of Americans, when you look at polling, believe police should have accountability. So we need to do the hard work to put them on the record when they choose not to hold law enforcement accountable.
I'm especially grateful for both of these answers, and Commissioner Douglas reminds me of a time. Just to show of hands, does anyone remember before 9/11? Are we okay? All right. And how much our country has changed since 9/11. And I'm saying that not really to offer anything super insightful, other than for us to really think about where we are in our country's history and what has taken place to bring us here. It's very easy to look around at what's going on around us and to problem solve from where we are, but if we're not looking backwards, right? If we're not having a bit of Sankofa, where we can look at our past to inform some of our future actions, then we stand the risk of repeating history. I think some of this is what we are currently seeing. And so again, it's up to us to do everything that's within us to prevent us from being the worst of us. So our next question comes from, I need a bigger desk. I have a bigger desk at home. I'm so sorry. Give me just a moment. For Stewards of Cumberland County, which is one of our co-sponsors. So thank you so much for that. And Mr. Holden Burkholder is with us this evening. He is an accountant and community organizer working towards a sustainable central Pennsylvania. He is a founding member of the Stewards of Cumberland County, an anti-data center community group. Holden, thank you for being here, and could we hear from you, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
That was my very first official introduction. Okay. Thank you. I'll get my warning this. Deindustrialization has really ravaged this nation, and what it really ravaged is severe job loss across the entirety of this nation. Arguably, that's what's led to this rise in Christian nationalism and far-right rhetoric. My question to you: if the job loss that is predicted to occur due to the build-out data centers and the expansion of AI infrastructure, should that job loss occur, do you have any plans to make sure those people who lose their jobs are able to return to jobs at least equal to pay and reverse the trend of underemployment?
I think I go first.
Look, it brings up a great question. Manufacturing, offshoring, going other places. Look, here's what I'll say. I think first and foremost, we have to address the reality of corporate greed, because that's what's driving this. We can try to fix this in a responsive way to jobs being lost, to trying to figure out like universal basic income. We can do all these kinds of things to try to respond to it. But the real thing we need to do is ensure we create a system like that existed when my parents were kids, that, you know, billionaires paid their fair share, millionaires paid their fair share. They weren't capped. They didn't have all these offshore options to hide their money from the IRS. They didn't have all these loopholes. They weren't able to give unlimited money to politicians so that they could buy the legislation. And so if we don't change that, then we're gonna keep getting the same result no matter what system we create. Universal basic income just won't be enough, and there won't be enough will for it, because they'll pit us against each other as the poor working class on whether or not that's a good idea or a handout, right? And we'll fight over that while they keep getting more and more rich. And so we have to put measures in place that limit that. This is the reason I'm not taking corporate PAC money. I refuse to take it because how I get there and the strings that are attached to me. My average gift is $22. We have over 4,000 donors. I'm not taking that money because when I get there, I'm not going to do their bidding. I'm going to be trying to dismantle what they've been doing. So we have to address it in that way. Look, I'll also say this just briefly about data centers. We're dealing with, as this comes in, it's going to be very interesting because counties like like me as a county commissioner, we see a big blank check of tax money for property tax, right? But what that's going to do is it's going to give us a lot more money to not have to raise your property taxes. And you're going to be like, sweet, but guess what's going to go up? Your utilities. And so you need to know that anyone selling you, we're getting all this money, it's going to come from somewhere else. And that's something we're going to have to talk about, have honest conversations about as elected officials. Thank you.
Justin and I pretty much see eye to eye on this, and yeah, the reason we can't have nice things is corruption, and it's straight corruption. So yeah, we're talking about jobs. When do we lose those jobs? You can look at the numbers, and you can almost set your calendar to when the jobs are going to be lost. It's December, the very end of December, April. It's quarterly. So they lay people off quarterly to raise the stock price, and then have to rehire people, and then fire them again to raise the stock price. And it's systems like that are ruining things. It's chasing that green line every single quarter at the expense of everything else. So yeah, we have to address the corruption and the corporate greed, like Justin said, because it's never enough. They'll never have enough. They will rip the copper pipes out of the White House to sell for scrap, and it still won't be enough money for them. So it's we address the corporate greed. Yeah, I'll jump to the data center real quick. So data centers are kind of a necessity. Okay, we don't need as many as we have. Don't get me wrong. But the problem with them is, imagine I'm building a football stadium, right? And it's in the middle of a field, in the middle of nowhere, there's a parking lot, I have solar panels. You're not gonna care, it's not bothering you. But if I build that same football stadium in your backyard and hook the electric up to your garage and say, don't worry, I'll pay for it, like it's still kind of a problem, even if you're paying for it, because you're using all of the existing infrastructure that everybody else pays for, except for that company. And usually when these data centers go in, they get sweetheart deals to do it. So they'll pay less for their water that they're going to use, hundreds of thousands of millions of gallons of than you. How does that feel? Being a normal guy paying, I don't know, remember the price of water right now, what is it, like 10 cents a gallon or something, and knowing that a $1 billion company is paying a fraction of a cent for the same thing.
Well, I want to thank you both for your answers. I want to stay with data centers a little bit, just because I'm in charge, and I want to stay there. But here's what I'm because obviously, again, I'm running for state rep in a district where there is a proposal for a data center in Middlesex Township, and so this is very, very close to me. Something that I've been sitting with for about the past week or so watching, the same social media groups that Holden is in. And one of the comments talked about EMS. And what was interesting about the comment was pretty much that the local municipality did not have the EMS infrastructure for this amount of electricity. And I started thinking about, well, it would almost be like if I wanted to hook up a huge transformer and run a bunch of, space heaters and computers and add these extra electrical outlets to my residential property. There would be some rules against that, right? The HOA first. And then, there would be probably some code, right, regulations that would be informed by, is there enough support infrastructure? Is there enough emergency response for if something goes wrong? And in Middlesex Township, they're already having a shortage of EMS responders, and they're looking to regionalize. And so I will pose this question to both of you. How do you consider data center development? Because if it's not in your local municipality yet, it will be by the end of 2026. How do you engage in that conversation from a perspective that it's not necessarily, it is and does affect the people who are immediately, who are in closest proximity. But what about those who aren't, that need for that to not catch on fire, that need for there to not be a catastrophe? How do we prepare, and what guardrails are there in place? What would you like to see in place? What would you do about it?
So there should be thoughtful EMS like protocols, and everyone should have to follow stuff. But I want to actually talk about something different, but attached. Okay, only because the framework of this conversation that Middlesex Township is dealing with is actually something all of us in central Pennsylvania are dealing with, and we might not know. 3 Mile Island is being restarted. And when you talk about the logistics of evacuating a prison, an entire region, nursing homes, hospitals, one of the biggest medical centers within 100 miles, like, who does that? The county. The county emergency management does. And so whatever property tax is coming in, we need to ensure they're paying above and beyond to support the infrastructure for emergency management responses. So while I don't know Middlesex Township's specific issues, if this data center wants to go in there and the infrastructure doesn't exist, they should be taking on the responsibility of ensuring that the infrastructure is funded. And not for 1 year, not for 2 years, as long as it exists. And so, but what typically happens, as was stated, is you get a sweetheart deal. It's kind of what they do is they put bids on multiple properties to build these, and then they get the townships working against each other to see who will give the best tax deal, who will give the best, payment in lieu of taxes or any number of other things like that. So we have to make sure we're watchdogging. Like if your local elector, your local officials that you've elected matter way more than you think. Your township supervisor, your local township commissioner, they matter so much because they are the ones who are the backstop for this. They're the goalies. And they need to just be informed and know what's up, and they need to hear from you. If this is something you're passionate about, you need to write to them and ask what their plan is. Help them get informed.
So when we talk about data centers, the question we have to ask is why do we have so many data centers? We know the answer to that is AI, and I use the air quotes because we don't actually have proper AI. Okay, AI is artificial intelligence, and we don't have that yet. As far as we know, we don't have that yet. What we have is they're called language learning models, right? They're guessing machines. So the part of the problem we're running into is we're building these data centers for a thing that doesn't even work very well. AI is propping up the stock market right now. I think like Tesla too, maybe like one other thing. But I feel like, and this is just me, guessing here, I feel like in the next couple of years, we're going to find out real quick that we built too many data centers, that the AI is not good enough, and it's just becoming a waste of money. So I think the first thing we need to do is we actually need to have like a federal study to determine how many data centers do we actually need. Because it's becoming a big problem. It's becoming a problem with utilities and the water and the electric, but also with consumer electronics. Okay, I'm a gamer. I like my computer games, and over the last 4 years, we've seen the price of computer hardware double and triple in price, and that's for computers right now. That's going to start going to smaller consumer electronics if it hasn't already. That's everything from RAM to processors to storage and everything in between. I think one of the bigger manufacturers of hard drives, I'm sorry, said that they're no longer going to produce hard drives for consumers, for people. There was another company that said they're not going to do RAM anymore for people. They'll still do it for the companies, but they're not going to do it for people anymore because it's not as profitable. So we're facing this problem where everything's being shoveled up top, and we're the ones that are paying for it. So, like I said, I think the first thing we need to do is figure out, do we even need these to begin with? If we do, we need to regulate them in a way that's sustainable and realistic, and if we don't, then we don't.
Thank you both. I could talk about data centers. We could do that all night, and there is some real concerns, not only from the environmental perspective, but the economic piece of it, the greed piece of it, the greased pathway to approval is a problem, as is the rezoning meetings that happen at 7:30 in the morning. I could go on about the issues there, but let's head to our next question that will come from Nabila Taha, a Palestinian American whose parents and grandparents were ethnically cleansed in 1948 from historic Palestine by the Israeli government. She has been living in central Pennsylvania for over 40 years. She holds a math degree from Penn State University. May we hear from you, please?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Peace be upon you. Thank you for having us today. Today is the first day of Ramadan, which is a very important day for us. The fact that I'm here shows how important this gathering is and asking the questions. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So thank you very much for the people who arranged this, and we need more, and we need to hear from all of the candidates so that we know where they stand on all of the issues. Having said that, my question is, over the past 2.5 years, many human rights organizations and legal scholars, actually the majority of genocide scholars, as well as the United Nations, have described Israel's military campaign in Gaza as genocide. Do you recognize Israel's actions targeting Palestinians during this period as genocide? And given that the US provides billions in largely unconditional military aid to Israel each year, actually in the past 2.5 years, our government have provided over $37 billion in military aid. Do you believe that those funds would be better invested in addressing urgent affordability crises here at home, such as housing, healthcare, and education. Thank you.
Thank you for that. To answer your question, what was your question specifically? I'm sorry.
Is it a genocide?
Oh, yeah, it's a genocide. Yeah, you can see it from space. Go to Google Maps, look at Palestine. You can see how bad it is from space. The reason that the United States government won't call it a genocide is because they're not allowed to do something about it. I think it was like UN charter or law, I could be wrong on this, but it pretty much said, like, if there's a genocide going on in the world, the United States government has a duty to intervene. So the reason that they don't call it genocide is because then they would have to go and protect the Palestinians. The fact that we send, I think it is about $40 billion a year now to Israel is ridiculous. I think it comes out to about $1,000 per Israeli that we're sending. They have free healthcare, we don't. So the idea that we're sending all this money overseas to kill poor brown people while we have poor brown people at home starving is ridiculous. And that's putting it nicely. But yes, genocide for sure.
You won't find much disagreement between William and me on this. It's a genocide. It's war crimes. They're consistently documented double tap strikes on buildings. If you don't know what that is, it's where you strike a facility, the moment aid comes, you strike it again. These are traditionally seen by the entire community as obvious, clear, blatant war crimes. We've seen multiple of these things documented. The other thing we've seen is we've seen press targeted. We've seen doctors and nurses and medical workers targeted, hospitals targeted, schools targeted, religious spaces targeted. These are the kinds of things you see in a genocide. You also see the reality of resources not being able to get in, aid not being able to get in, another thing you see in the midst of that. And we're just talking about Gaza. We're not even talking about the realities of the West Bank, where I have been to Palestine. I've seen a bulldozed home that happened a week before I got there. I might be the only candidate in this race that's been to that region and spent 2 weeks there learning about the realities of the conflict. When I was there, it was very clear who had all the power in the relationship, and it was very clear how they were using it to further oppress. So I say that as someone who's walked through multiple checkpoints in that region, has seen the realities of the apartheid, and simply would say all American dollars that are spent overseas should be going for the furtherance of peace, not to add conflict. And so when we give an ally a weapon, provide them a weapon, and then we see them misuse it, we have to hold them to a high standard. If not, we are complicit. And I would say in this reality, we are complicit. And then on top of it, you have the realities of money and politics again, because many people would love to influence elections and ensure people talking like me and William never get the chance to be in Congress, because God help us if I say this on the floor of Congress. Say plainly what's happened, and plainly our complicit reality in it. And so we need to elect bold leaders who, aren't beholden to all the influence makers who are trying to make sure that, weapons manufacturers can continue to make the billions of dollars they're making. One of the shocking things that happened when I was there, I walked through a refugee camp. At the end of the camp, there was a little artist studio. Walked into the artist studio, and I bought my wife a pair of earrings. There are these key earrings. They're carved out of the canister of tear gas. Okay? They showed me an uncarved up canister of tear gas, and when they showed it to me and I held it, I looked at it and it said made in Pennsylvania. We make many of the weapons, and that particular refugee camp is known as one of the most tear gassed places in all of the world. So we have to wake up to this, and we have to say we're not going to participate in it. And certainly, as William said, what is America first when we're sending this much money overseas and we have real problems to address here that money could go a long way in solving?
I just want to add a little bit to that. Just brought up manufacturing markets in Pennsylvania, and that is actually a big business in Pennsylvania. So the argument is going to be, it's jobs, it's good paying jobs. Well, those jobs are dependent on constantly being at war. So we do, right? So we do need to reduce our weapons manufacturing. I mean, ideally, we wouldn't need it to begin with, but pushing businesses that only survive by killing people is bad business.
Thank you both for those responses, and thank you for the question and for being here with us this evening. Thank you. Our next question comes from Mr. John Flood. John Flood is a veteran who refuses to look away from injustice. He has run for the Cumberland Valley School Board and for the Pennsylvania State House, not for personal ambition, but because this community deserves leaders who fight, not posture. He is active, visible, and engaged. And when injustice shows up in Pennsylvania's 10th district, John Flood meets it head on. John, can we hear from you, please?
Thank you. This question, I served as a United States Naval officer, and part of my duties there was to, I actually conducted counter-narcotics operations in the Caribbean and South America. So in those missions, we learned hard lessons. Threats without clear legal authority escalate situations. Mission creep becomes inevitable, and civilians and military members are likely to pay the price for political posture masquerading as strategy. We were taught that force is the last resort, and that objectives must be lawful, clearly defined, and that civilian leadership must be held accountable to Congress and the Constitution. Yet under the Trump administration, we saw repeated threats of military action, open discussion of regime change, and escalating and coercive action and an invasion of Venezuela, all without congressional authority. This is a clear violation of the War Powers Act and the Constitution's separation of powers. And my question is, do you believe that the Trump administration's actions towards Venezuela and the attacks on the boats in Venezuela constitute an abuse of executive power and a violation of the War Powers Act? And what concrete steps will you take to ensure that no president of either party can threaten or initiate military conflict without explicit authorization from Congress?
First, John, thank you for your service. So let's go back in time a little bit to a president that first got me really engaged in politics. Maybe you've heard of him, Barack Obama, right? He got me really engaged in politics. He inspired me in a lot of ways, and a lot of the things that he advocated for, I was on board with. One of the things he said he was going to do was close down Guantanamo Bay. That was a big reason why I supported him. That obviously didn't happen. Another thing he did that was really concerning was the expansion of drones and dropping drones, and many of those missions being questionable in whether or not the target was accurate and whether or not civilians as part of that target and whether or not Congress needed to be more involved in those decisions. We've ceded to the executive branch a lot of authority long before Donald Trump. We just didn't expect someone like Trump to be in that position and to have all of these powers and to operate in such an unapologetic way and to force the courts, because they're really the only ones left to step in to try to restrain. Our systems are being challenged in ways I don't think we ever expected. But it's not to say that we had it right even back with Obama. And to be clear, I'm a big fan of Barack Obama, but I think Look, I hope you're critical of me as a Dauphin County Commissioner. I'm never going to bat 1,000. You should always be objective with the people that you even admire and follow, and would vote for. You should always be objective and say they're not going to get it right every time. I shouldn't have to agree with every single thing someone says. So let's just talk about the actual issue. We're talking about drug boats, which we're not even sure. There's even questions of whether or not they're human trafficking boats, which brings into a whole new level the reality that we're bombing these because we could be very well killing innocent people who are being victimized. So I do agree it is a violation of everything you listed, the War Powers Act, all of that. Congress has to be notified. Congress wasn't even notified when we went in to take out a dictator. And then we said, we now run the country. What? And you didn't even notify Congress? You didn't even notify Congress? And they said, well, we couldn't notify Congress because they might leak it. Listen, that shows what they think of Congress, and it shows why we need to send fighters.
So I'll try and address the hardest part of the question first is, how do we stop this from happening again? And I'm going to keep circling back to Congress. The rules are already there. They're not enforced because Congress is not enforcing them. So we need a new Congress. We also need, and again, we used to have it, independence between the military and the executive. The military was subordinate to the executive, but there were still rules, and those rules no longer apply. They got rid of all the grown-ups in the room. The problem with the first Trump presidency, the reason why he lost the second time and didn't get all the crazy shit done that he wanted was because there were grown-ups in the room, okay? He got rid of all those grown-ups. So we have to bring all the grown-ups back. And again, this is long-haul stuff, okay? This isn't gonna happen overnight. The people that overthrew our government, they're not gonna just let go, okay? They're not gonna just say, okay, well, the Democrats have a majority, and they said we're not allowed to do this anymore, and stop. They're gonna keep doing it until we stop them. So that was the first part of it. The second part was war crimes. I've been to war. The first thing we got, before we even got on the plane to go to Iraq, was rules of engagement. The first thing you do, you get classes on it. It's drilled into your brain. If you fuck this up, you will go to jail. And more people should have gone to jail than actually did, but people got punished for breaking the law in war. And I miss those times. I miss those times. We've become a pirate fleet. The United States Army is now a pirate fleet. We're stealing tankers, we're raiding lands, we're stealing oil. We need to bring the grown-ups back into the room, and we do that by getting rid of Trump, getting rid of the Freedom Caucus. I'm going to mention, I don't have time for it. I'll carry on.
I'm going to stay here for just a moment because I think we do have time. But I want to connect this John's question and Nabila's. Is it Nabila? I want to connect these two because there is a theme of excessive. Even the terminology excessive force just doesn't seem like it's quite enough.
Well, I think to that point, it is when we talk about rules. Okay, there you go. When we are taught. Okay, I'll give a little bit of background. When I was part of in the Navy, we made the largest maritime bust in United States history. We seized a ship called the Sea Chariot. It had 5,000 kilos of uncut cocaine in it. The street value close to about $600 million. And now we did that without firing a single shot. And we also had permission from St. Lucia to board the ship. We told them, hey, the ship is carrying this, we are going to board it. We did turn our guns on it. We let them know that we don't run away from us because we will take you out. And they did. They stopped, we boarded the ship. And the crew of that ship was actually, their families were kidnapped by the cartels and forced to use this. So when we talk about a lot of these abuses of force, it is a moral issue from a military perspective. That we don't have a right, because what happens when we abuse people? They're going to abuse our troops. And so we have to have that kind of notion in place here. So I do agree that it is critical that we talk about that.
Thank you for that, John. I think where you are is good, and I just want to ask if our candidates will respond to the idea of not only it's excessive force, but it's almost also an extreme militarization of anything that's moving. And I wonder if our candidates would speak to how you see these two issues connected with our identity as a country, as a superpower, and how we can also maintain our positionality, if we must maintain our positionality as being this world leader, in quotes.
So I haven't mentioned this yet, but I was a pastor for 20 years before becoming a county commissioner. On that journey as a pastor, in, I want to say like 2013, I had a pretty big crisis of faith, and I was preaching every Sunday, and I wasn't sure if I believed in the Bible. Not a great place to be if you're a pastor of a growing church. And I really went on a journey to kind of like shed some of the theology that I had been handed. I had already done that with many other things within my theology, but I was working through some things, especially the idea of certainty and the idea that doubt is very integral part of your faith, not something to just try to remove. In that process, what brought me back to faith was Anabaptist leaders and theologians. If you know anything about Anabaptism, it's where you get your Amish, your Mennonites, your brethren. And what brought me back was their real rootedness in the gospel of Jesus. And what was very interesting was their position on nonviolence. And I say this as this area in Pennsylvania has a rich tradition of Anabaptist leaders and shapers to say, we would do good to bring some of the nonviolence into the way we handle conflicts around the world. We might have a hammer in our hand, but we don't have to always use the hammer. This idea of peace through strength makes us a lot of enemies. You know, the idea of killing people indiscriminately with a drone and leaving their kids fatherless, motherless, and then thinking in 20 years when that kid grows up into an adult that they're not going to be primed for terrorist recruitment. It doesn't make sense. We have to start understanding that our destinies are intertwined, and we should be treating our neighbors with love, respect, and only going to that hammer when it's absolutely necessary. And that's the perspective I bring to Congress.
I do think this is kind of a three-part thing. I don't necessarily think that Venezuela and the militarization of the United States is connected. So I think the militarization started with 9/11, right? And since then, the United States government, if you didn't know this, has been selling military gear to local police. There are police departments in Ohio that have maybe 5 officers, but they have an MRAP. An MRAP is a mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle. They weigh like 20 tons. They don't need that. They're not stopping mines. But the government had such a surplus of this that they were selling it to local police for $5, like nothing. They were giving it away. So when you get a new toy, you want to play with it, right? And that's what we're seeing happen over the last 20 years. The cops got all these new toys and they want to play with them. So that's just like part of the problem. With Venezuela, I don't think it's as complicated. I think it's just Trump has a new toy, the United States military, and he wants to play with it. He couldn't find a good reason to blow somebody up, so he made one up. And that's, we talked about that earlier. I think the third problem is, in America, we don't give a shit about each other. If somebody gets in your way, you casually say, like, man, I wish you would die. Like, get out of my way. It's become so easy to discount the lives of each other that unless that person is standing right in front of you, you could care less about them. Now, I'm just speaking generally. We have great people in this room, but we've all seen that. Minor inconveniences get treated with, I hope you die. I'm guilty of it. I'm sure people said that on the way over here. So we do need to address that. I think Justin talked on it. Respect and love. That's where we have to start.
Thank you both for that answer, for your answers on that. The thing that Justin and I share in common is our faith. And today in my faith tradition is Ash Wednesday. And we are, as an aside, I always think it's very interesting when our Abrahamic siblings celebrate very similar concepts at the same time. So again, thank you for being here. And so we, share this sort of collective response, or what should be a collective response to how we are engaging with one another, how we are treating one another, and ultimately how we are being loving towards one another. And so our next question comes from Julia Tilley. Julia is a 30-year resident of Harrisburg City, where she has worked as a community social worker and professor at HAP. She is a community activist that is part of Our Revolution, an organization that fights the oligarchy and pushes the government to put people and the planet above billionaires. Julia, your question.
Can you hear me without it?
Yeah.
All right. I have been told I have a big mouth. Prices are rising all over our state. Meat is up 15%, housing prices have gone up 5.7%, and rent is through the proverbial roof. Even working 2 and 3 jobs just isn't cutting it anymore. But a person should be able to afford housing, food, and quality health care on one full-time job. If elected, what are you planning to do to help working-class families afford the basic necessities of life?
So the first question we ask is why are prices so high? There's a good corporate rate, and we've addressed that, but it's monopolies too. Monopolies the whole way up. Every section of our economy is dominated by monopolies. You go to the grocery store, how many grocery store options do you have around here? It's like 2. Carnes, kind of, but it's giant and Wise. Did you know the Wise family has a $640 million art collection while people are starving? So there's one monopoly, and we'll talk about beef. Okay, there's only like 3 major beef production facilities in the United States. They have like 80% of the beef manufacturing. Okay, so that's another monopoly right there. And when we get down to the cattle farms, right? They're all mega farms. There are small farms, and there's Lancaster right here, but where does our cows come from? The Texas area, right? They have millions of cows per herd. So more monopolies. These are the people that decide what the price is going to be for your groceries. So the first thing we have to do is tackle monopolies. And that's just one example. That's milk, that's housing, that's wood, that's Legos, everything. Everything has a monopoly, and it's kind of crazy. So that's the first thing we can do. I'm not even going to say the first thing, that's anything we can do. The first thing we can do to offer immediate relief is raise minimum wage. When you raise minimum wage, everything else will go up with it. Because if you're making $15 an hour, first of all, it should be higher than 15. We've been arguing about the minimum wage for so long that it should realistically be like $25, $28 an hour right now. But I'm going to say 15 because it's more digestible for a lot of people. So the first thing we can do is raise the minimum wage, and that will raise the wages of all the other jobs across the board. The rising tide lifts all boats. the tariffs too. The tariffs gotta go. And I'm not gonna lie, one concern I have right now is if when the Democrats take back over, they're gonna leave some of the tariffs in place. I don't know why they would do it, but that's a fear that I have. So, yeah, those are the two biggest immediate things. With housing, again, it's monopolies, it's landlords using a program called Yield Star, okay? And it's a program that tells other landlords what to charge for rent. Well, we found out a couple of years ago that these companies like Yield Star were working with each other to fix prices on rent. So, damn it, everywhere you turn, your prices are being fixed by 2 or 3 monopolies. So yeah, we really need like an FDR to come along and just break all that shit down. That will fix most of the problems.
All right, so you asked, what could I do as a congressman? I'm going to tell you what I've done as a commissioner, because the difference that I have is that I ran a campaign, I won, and I got in office, and I made a difference. And I want to talk about the difference I made, because the truth of the matter is, what we're talking about doing in Congress may not be achievable with Trump having the veto. So I could tell you all the things I would support, I could tell you all the things I would co-sponsor, but I'd rather you see my record. So here's my record. I wanted to raise the minimum wage for county employees, because our employees, someone came into my office that was a maintenance worker for us, told me he'd been working at the county for I think 14 years and was making less than that an hour. Less than $14 an hour. I think he was making like 12 something an hour. And at a 2.95% increase every year, he'll never get to even close to a livable wage. So with hard work and working with my commissioners and saying things like, I'm not going to support a budget unless it includes a $16 minimum wage and them needing my vote, I was able to make that happen. And that's the kind of commitment that I'll bring to raising the minimum wage and including getting rid of the sub-minimum wage. The other thing I'll say is on housing. We have an affordable housing crisis right now, even just market rate housing crisis right now across the country, and certainly in PA10. If you wanted to get a house 5 years ago and you want to get one today, I mean, it's almost double the market, and it's almost impossible to even get an inspection on a house if you're going to buy it, because someone probably already offered them cash, right? We're in this real problem time right now. As a county commissioner, I got in, I have oversight of affordable housing. One of the first things I did was look at our affordable housing trust fund and said, why are we only helping people for $3,000 of their down payment? Why don't we do $6,000? And the reason is because this is money we have that's just sitting there, that we give you this $6,000, you go buy a house, it's first-time home buyers program, you go buy your first home, whenever you sell that home, you pay the $6,000 back. So it's an investment and we're getting it back. We could have a federal program like this as well and invest a lot of money in it. And ultimately it's going to help the economic growth of our communities. It's going to give people economic stability. And it can also be a revolving door program where those monies come back as people in our communities are experiencing economic freedom, they're paying back into the system for the next person. Look, when my parents wanted to get a house, the average, when I was born in '84, so in the late 80s, early 90s, the average age to buy your first home, 26 years old. Today, 40. We've got to change that. We need bold leadership to do it.
Thank you both for these answers. It's very interesting that we have a structure in our country that prefers trickle down over the rising tide that lifts all boats, and they both have to do with water. And there are still people in our country that don't have clean water. And so that's all I'll say about that. Our next question comes from Katie Juliana from Young Dems of South Central PA. who's also one of our co-sponsors. Katie is on the executive board for the South Central Young Democrats, where she serves as events chair. Her political work is informed by her decade of experience as a social worker. Katie, would love to hear a question from you.
I'm gonna holler as well. Thanks, everybody. All right, it seems like there has been less and less chat about a green transition, even from Democrats of late. What can we do and how should we be talking about climate change?
My first on this one. We could not hear the question. The question was around a green transition and climate change, correct? And less talk from Democrats right now. Here's what I would say. I think there's less and less talk from Democrats right now because we're dealing with the reality of authoritarianism coming at us from every direction. And unfortunately, when we address climate change, we're thinking visionarily, and this particular administration has us reacting to every single moment that they're trying to flood the zone with chaos. That's not an excuse. That's just, I think, the reality of what we've been dealt right now. Look, I think the previous president, Biden, did a fabulous job investing in infrastructure. I got the opportunity to be there in Steelton when they implemented solar and buses that run on electricity that can actually, if the school ever deals with a power outage, the bus can power the school. All their buses can power the school. It's a really cool system, and it was invested in from the federal government. Unfortunately, this administration has basically rolled back all those dollars that were in wind and solar and renewable energies. And so, seeing the divestment from that, seeing our further reliance on fossil fuels, and kind of it seems like there's just a desire to the oil oligarchs to make sure they get what they want. I mean, when we talked about the military action earlier, it's like, what's the motive behind the military action? Well, we want to get some corporations in there that have, are going to line their pockets and make money off this oil. And the moment they can provide security for that, they're probably going to do that. So look, I think we need people in Congress. I'm committed to renewable energies. I'm committed to environmental, protections. When I ran for commissioner, I was endorsed by Sierra Club. I'm certainly one who wants to do everything I can to protect the environment. Again, are most of those laws going to get vetoed? Probably, but I think we need to put them on record to veto them.
Yeah, ditto. I mean, that pretty much nailed it. It's crazy to me that we were just talking about AI data centers a couple minutes ago, and now we're talking about lack of green energy, and they solve each other's problems almost. It's just crazy that we're not pursuing green energy, and we're going back to oil and coal just because we want to make a few guys rich, and that's just insane because there's more money in green energy than there is in coal and oil. So the fact that we're ditching future technology in favor of history is just not practical, it's not realistic, it's not sustainable, it's not anything. I don't know what else to say. Like it's just insane. Green energy is the future. We have a sun that it's a giant nuclear reactor just showering us with energy all day, and we say no. That's insane.
I'm going to stay on that just a moment because I think this is actually very important and very relevant. Because at present, right now, is probably the best air quality that we've had today at this time of day. Right now, the air quality is a 93. It should be down to like 0. So it's a 93, which means it's moderate. What would you do in Congress to address air quality concerns here in PA-10?
Well, like I said, we need environmental protections of all kinds. You mentioned water. Obviously, some of that's infrastructure related. Some of that's ensuring that we don't allow, greed to ultimately just dump into, waterways. When it comes to the air we breathe, look, we need to stop relying on fossil fuels. We need to continue to explore technology like, electric vehicles, and looking into like how much is this impacting our air when we don't put these pollutants into the air. But I would also say we need to radically consider like transportation in general. Like I don't see a world in 30 years where you're going to need a vehicle. I'm just going to say it that, like, you're just not going to need one. Now, you still might have one because you want one, but I don't think you're going to need one, because I think we're going to have, autonomous driving vehicles that are probably going to be electric powered. And basically, as soon as we leave here, we will have put a note in an app that tells people that there's going to be 50 people leaving here, cars will come pick us up, and like that car was working all day. And maybe it is a car we own, but as soon as we get to work, it goes out and does work and makes money for us as an Uber. Like, we need to be mindful that like there's technology coming that's going to make us less reliant on all these cars being on the road at the same exact time all the time. And we're going to have more options, and we need to make sure our communities are structured in a way for public transit to be more accessible, to be more affordable, to be more timely in the places in which it needs to be timely and accessible to the people who need it the most. All these things are ways that we can, I think, make our air quality better, because it takes less of that carbon footprint off. The other thing, though, the really big carbon footprint, when we really talk about it, though, is the corporations that are, pumping so much out. And we need to make sure that a lot of those particular safeguards that Trump has rolled back, because a lot of those people gave him campaign donations, that we put more safeguards in there.
So Justin touched on the pollution aspect. I want to touch on the cleanup. We have a couple of problems. One, in Pennsylvania, I think it's 96% of our streams and rivers are polluted. They're dirty. But when we're talking about air, we have to think more globally. So the way that the air gets cleaned up historically is it goes down through the Amazon and over to Africa and all that. So when we start doing this deforestation and trashing the environment, we're actually, the ocean actually cleans up a lot of the air too. You know that the algae, I think, does the most of it. But when we start doing these things, we're destroying our way of cleaning up our mess. So it just kind of compounds at that point. We all know the answers to this. It's stop polluting and stop cutting down trees. But there's one more aspect to it too, and that's making companies responsible for the messes that they make. For instance, in Pennsylvania, I think we have 6,000 to 10,000 uncapped natural gas wells. What that means is when they dig a natural gas well, they're supposed to put like a cap on top of it, so whatever gas is left over doesn't leak out when they're done. They're not doing that. I think the fine for it is something like $500 to $5,000. That's nothing, because the cost to clean up that site is $20,000 to $50,000. So the fine just becomes a cost of doing business. They're better off just leaving it than cleaning up their mess. So we have to address things like that too.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for your participation. We have a few more. Oh, Jesus, I thought that was it. Like, isn't that it? Like, this is how it is. All right, a few more questions to go through. Sean Crowell is a Cedar Cliff High School senior and political activist. He has focused his efforts on raising awareness for the importance of environmentalism, healthcare, and democratic norms. Sean, could we hear a question from you, please?
So I think I'm the youngest one here by maybe a decade.
Rub it in.
So my generation is going to be the one who's cleaning up many of the issues that the past few decades world leaders have been manufacturing for us. For example, like environmentalism, the democracy, and the issue of a growing oligarchy here. So what I want to know is what you're going to do to solve the multitude of issues and what you want our generation as young people to do to help you in that effort.
I don't need that. All right, so Sean, you're going to George Washington University? Yeah, give it up. You got into George Washington. First of all, I want the next generation in rooms like this. I want them to be engaged. I want them to understand that politics very much is at the intersection of their life currently and their future life. And I want them to get engaged sooner. One of the reasons our very first town hall that we did as a campaign was at Penn State Harrisburg was because we wanted to be around the next generation. We wanted young people to be engaged in this campaign. It's very important to us. And we have a lot of strategies after we get through petition signing to engage young people, get them registered to vote, and ultimately give them some hope for this region and for a representative that's going to do their best to include them in the process. So look, I think the question I'm going to ask you, and not that you need to give a public answer, but I just want you to think about this. What are you going to do to hold your leaders accountable? Because I think my generation has failed at this. I'm 41. I don't think we got engaged until it was too late on a lot of things. I know for me, I had young kids, I was busy, I didn't vote in local elections. I missed multiple local elections without ever an awareness of the power and the impact that my local leaders had on my life. And so I hope you're going to do the work, and I'm certainly going to do the work to inspire the next generation to be involved. And then I would say what I'm going to do is say, I'm not going to legislate for just the issues of different generations than you. Because your generation is typically, or the age demographic that represents you, is not like a voter that the polls tell me to think about. I should be thinking about all these other generations. But I want to talk about how the hell are you going to pay back George Washington University? Because I have 2 degrees and I'm still paying student loans, and my daughter's 16 and she's probably going to go to college, and I'm going to be paying whatever I'm going to be paying in assistance for her while I'm also still paying for my student loans. Because I was the first in my family to go to college, and the only way I could do it was on the back of loans. And then I got into a job that served people. I didn't make 6 figures a year, so I didn't have the ability to pay it back like as rapidly as others. So I want to address those issues because it's relevant to you and how you start your life. You should be educated. You should be able to go to that school, but you shouldn't be saddled with debt and feel like you made a FanDuel bet on your future in hopes that it would pay off.
I went to Dickinson College last year and talked to the students there. And I asked them, why don't you guys show up to shit? Because if you look around, he made a joke saying he was youngest by 10 years. And yeah, it's funny, but it's kind of not too. The Democrat Party's too old now. It's just too old. We can't bring in young people. Why? And I asked the kids that. Why? Because they don't get treated like adults. When they show up to the meetings, they get put off to the side and get treated like a novelty. And we have to stop that. He's an adult, okay? He's not a child, he is an adult. He can join.
He's still 17, not quite. He's almost there.
The military. He's almost there. He can still join the military at 17. He's an adult, okay? So we have to not just encourage the younger people to be involved, but at this point they're so disenfranchised, you have to push them. You have to drag them to be involved. You have to ask them, in 20 years, when your kids are asking you, Mom, Dad, what did you do when the Nazis came to America? What is your answer to them? And we have to help them achieve those results. There's really no other way. So my generation got told to wait. Somebody else is going to do it. Somebody else is handling the problem. Wait. And wait. And wait. I'm not going to tell you guys that. You need to start now. 17, you should have started 4 years ago. That was 5, but 4 years ago. Yeah, it's never too early for kids to learn what the right thing is. And being a progressive and a liberal and caring about people less fortunate than you is the right thing.
I do want to get invited back, so I'm going to start moving a little quicker and won't belabor the questions. Our next question comes from Amina Arshad. She is a field organizer for the Asian Pacific Islander Political Alliance. Amina, can we hear from you, please?
With the Asian Pacific Islander Political Alliance. We're the first organization that is led for and by Asian, focusing on building a long-term power for the Asian American, Asian immigrants, refugees, and Pacific Islander communities. I grew up in a refugee family, and I live and organize in this community. And I care about this race because policy decisions determine whether families like mine feel safe, heard, and supported. All our communities have been heavily affected by the intimidation and terrorization of ICE. So my question to you is, if elected, what are you prepared to do to ensure immigrants in this county feel safe? Thank you.
You can stand behind me. I wouldn't eat a shit sandwich so you don't have to. That's the kind of guy that I am. I unfortunately don't have a good answer for you because, like I said, this is a long-term problem. If I'm elected tomorrow, we still have 2 more years of Trump. We'll probably have 2 more years of ICE, 3 more years, whatever. So in the meantime, like, we need to build stronger communities. There's really no legislating our way out of this yet, but in the meantime, we can help communities grow and be stronger together, and you have to look out for each other. Relying on a representative at this point to protect you seems like a folly, no matter how great the person is, because it's just one representative. You really need the whole government behind you to make you feel safe. And when you have half the government attacking you, you are not going to feel safe. I don't feel safe, and I'm not an immigrant. I think it was just a couple of days ago, the White House said that they wanted the account names of people that were trash talking ICE on the internet. None of us are safe. They're going to get those names too. They're going to get the accounts. They've already got the apps. We're all already domestic terrorists. So when it comes to safety, it's really just a community thing. You have to be safe in your community. And I know that's not a great answer, but we're really in some shit times right now. I think that's all I got.
We give police a lot of tools. You even heard about militarized tools that we've given police. The number one tool we give police that matters most is public trust. And many police have burned through public trust on one incident or this incident or the occasional lack of accountability and something that gets caught on video. What we've seen with ICE is knowingly violating trust over and over and over and over again, and even laughing in the face of people and degrading people while they're filming it happening, knowing that they have no consequences. That kind of treatment of immigrants, of Americans, of any human being is unacceptable. And, I mentioned earlier about Section 1983 and the need to include federal law enforcement in that. If they're included in that and there are civil recourse that you can take when your rights are violated, that's going to have a big impact if we could get that passed. I'm not confident that would pass. If I was your congressman, I think the first thing I would do is I would work with all 3 counties that are represented, York County, Cumberland County, Dauphin County, and encourage them to pass a welcoming county policy that does not allow a 287G agreement and that limits the communication between their county and the federal government when it comes to ICE. And I would be doing that as a federal official, telling them this organization, this group can't be trusted. The other thing I would do is I would work with the governor's office to ensure that Pennsylvanians are safe. He's already made some great statements about, the realities that he does not want ICE coming here to Pennsylvania. I would want to do anything I could within my authority to look out for the constituents here, to talk to municipal leaders, let them know about the risks of signing agreements like that, because ICE will lay all the blame on you when the lawsuit comes. And we've seen it time and time again that the municipality gets left holding the bag. So I think using those pressures of legal liability would be a way to end those agreements and have less and less ICE overreach.
Thank you both for those answers. Our next question comes from Bob Reba. Bob is an active volunteer for numerous environmental organizations in the 10th District 10 area. He leads educational hikes, is an avid tree planter, and enjoys the outdoors. Bob, your question, please.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question tonight. And it is the Trump administration and Republicans in Congress are taking major steps to make it easier to sell off and privatize public lands, eliminate conservation areas, and prevent future presidents from protecting additional national monuments. To enable this polluting industrial development, Donald Trump has personally directed a massive effort to strip protections of public lands and waters, including removing Endangered Species Act protections. And once those areas are gone, they are gone forever. What is your position on these environmentally destructive efforts? As a House representative, how would you protect our pristine, irreplaceable public lands from this reckless and extreme increase in drilling, mining, and timbering?
I think I go first.
Well, my position is that this shouldn't be taking place. Many of these places are, sacred places. Like I look at the Appalachian Trail that goes right through here. It's an amazing place if you've ever been there. There's many amazing trails here in our region. We know the value of outdoors. I live out in Conewago Township in Dauphin County, and there's a trail that I take my dogs on and go run on. It's beautiful. I would hate for that to be developed. It's such a great trail. And many of us have experiences, whether on vacation or going on a road trip, camp trip, all those kinds of things with our national park system, because we know the value of getting outdoors. Our world's becoming increasingly digitized. Social media, we're constantly in front of screens. The value of our national parks right now, as we're spending more and more times indoors and more times on screens, it's a great opportunity for us to reconnect with the land, reconnect with nature, and even get physical activity. And so the idea that we're going to strip these away because the grifter in chief wants to make some more money, like that's what it is. I mean, these things aren't going to just go away because of some principle he has, unless that principle is simply ensuring that people who have likely already given him money are going to get something. The White House is open for business. You buy the right Bitcoin, guess what? You get the pardon. If you pay the right person, guess what? You get the right, appointment to some board or something. Like, it's so blatant and clear what they're doing, and the idea that they'll now sell off our parks, which, by the way, he tried to do the first time too. I mean, if you remember this, he tried to do this the first time and was mostly unsuccessful, but we gotta have people that tell the stories of these spaces. We need communicators in Congress. So many of your Congress people can't talk themselves out of a paper bag. Like, they need to be able to tell the stories of these cherished places and ensure that they're communicating to the American people what's going to be lost if we allow this man to do it. And then people show up and protect these places.
funny you said that, talking about, you know, protecting these places, because I can't. I grew up poor. When you're poor, your vacation is camping, right? You're sleeping outside. And I love it. I go to Tuscarora a couple of times a year at least. We go to Pinchot. We do what's called primitive roadside camping. That's where there's no facilities, there's no bathroom, there's no running water. So a couple of minutes ago when I was talking about, you know, the streams and rivers in Pennsylvania being polluted, I drink out of those. When I go camping, I take a water filter and I drink out of those. So the idea of ripping that down, like that means a lot to me. Like that would hurt. Fortunately in Pennsylvania, all of our forests are state-owned. Okay, they are not federally owned. The federal government, I'm not saying they won't do it, but the federal government does not have the authority to sell off our state forests. So thankfully we have that. But when it comes to other national monuments, we saw that they just tried to remove the, what was the one in Philly that they just tried to remove?
Are you talking about the monuments to the Black history that were there, and civil rights leaders?
They're still going to try and remove all those. So that doesn't affect the environment, but it still affects our future. When it comes to protecting the environment, like I'm your guy. Like I love being outside. I hate being inside. It drives me a little bit crazy. I'm getting a little stir crazy right now. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry. Sometimes I ramble.
Thank you again to all of our questioners, our petitioners, for asking such great questions of our candidates. You know, this is a very serious time that we are in, and that cannot be overstated. It's very important that we choose the right representative, because what we lack right now is representation. And so we don't have, it's almost like leadership. They say, oh, well, if you don't have any leadership, that you just need a leader. But having bad leadership is worse than not having any leadership at all. And the same is true with representation. And because of where we sit right now in our country, I encourage you all to continue to ask great questions. Candidates love hard questions. Don't strike me down.
Some do.
So please ask the hard questions. We are going to shift right now to closing statements, so that I do get invited back without going too far over the time. But this has been very informative for me, and I am grateful for the invitation to moderate this evening and to share and spend some time with folks in PA10 who feel similarly and want to start rowing in the right direction that restores us back to the community that we know and love. And so we will invite our candidates to, I'm going to slice a minute from each of you and ask you to just give 2 minutes of closing remarks. And then I'll ask Michael to come forward and give us any housekeeping that we need to get out of here. Thank you.
Yeah, I was the first on the last one. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Thank you everybody for coming. We're going through some times right now, and I know some of my answers weren't the ones that you wanted to hear. And I know when I told them that they weren't the answers you wanted to hear, because I think it's important to tell people the truth, even if they don't want to hear it. We're in this for the long haul, okay? Like I said, if I got elected tomorrow as president of Earth, Donald Trump has done so much damage to our country, internationally, nationally, even on the local level. This will take at least a generation to fix, okay? We've lost trade partners. We've lost alliances with allies that we've had for 100 years or more. That's gone. That trust cannot be bought back. It can't be bargained back. It just takes time. And I'm going to use one more boat analogy here. I feel like I'm drowning, right? We're on the Titanic. We've already hit the iceberg. And our leadership right now is telling us to wait, be calm, just wait. We're down in the engine room. right? Shoveling the coal in, dumping buckets of water overboard, trying to keep the ship afloat. But our leadership is telling us to wait while they load their donors into life rafts. And we cannot have that happening, okay? Everybody in this room is important. Every single one of them. And we need to act like it. We need to act like each other matter. And every single person that we know, meet, talk to matter. I said it earlier. We've become a country that doesn't care about other people. We will bomb people overseas because it's over there. I can't see it. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't hurt me. Until it does. It does. It affects our relationships internationally. It affects our families and how do we talk to each other. You know, I don't talk to half my family anymore. And I know there are people in this room that are the same. And we need to fix that. And it starts by fixing our representatives. We need representatives that show up. We need representatives that don't take dirty money. We need representatives that will work for you because you are what matters, not the donors. Thank you.
Scott Perry hasn't shown up to a public town hall since 2019. We don't need another one of those in Washington. How you run your campaign is how you'll lead as a congressperson. I think this is like my 9th or 10th town hall that I've done since announcing my candidacy in September. Not to mention, just last week I did 6 podcasts. I have never once screened the questions. I have no idea what I'm going to be asked. I do research. I'm clear with you on where I stand. I'm also clear when I get it wrong or when my position evolves. Because it will. Because it has over the course of my lifetime. I'm a human being. You don't expect me to be perfect, but I hope to God you expect me to show up. I hope to God you expect me to show up on the campaign trail. I don't deserve your vote, and no one else in this race does either. I have to earn your vote, and I do that by showing up. And let me tell you, dollars don't vote, people do. I was out fundraised as a commissioner 20-1. I'm currently out fundraised 20-1 right now. Seems like pretty good odds for me. Because I already want a seat that way. Because people vote, money doesn't. And I want you to know you have the power to demand that if people want to be put in Washington, they need to show up. The other thing is Washington shouldn't be deciding who PA 10's representative is. Washington shouldn't be making calls weeks after an election and determining who's going to win this one right now, 2 years later. Resourcing one candidate and not the others. Having active conversations with one candidate and not the others. This is the problem with the Democratic Party. It's the reason that I don't want to be a Democrat most days. I'm a progressive. I'm not going to shy away from that. My values are clear, and who I am is clear. But a party apparatus that believes running to the center is the way we maintain power is the dumbest idea ever. And here's why. Because I mentioned earlier someone that inspired me to get involved with politics. Go back before Barack Obama. His name was never there. Like no one thought he was going to run for president. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, this guy who's painted as a liberal, who was the most liberal candidate in that run, when everybody else is saying you need to run to the center. He was able to inspire people because he was authentic, real, connected with people in a human way, showed up. We are in a moment right now where we damn well better pick leaders that show up. And we damn well better pick leaders that are authentic, that are real people, because if we don't, we are going to get more of the same. And we are going to send feckless leaders to Washington and expect so much of them, but we knew exactly what we were getting when we filled in that bubble.
Apparently I'm supposed to give
I just didn't know if you wanted to say anything.
Apparently I'm supposed to give a benediction, so if we would kindly rise. Kidding. Got you all.
Just one point of housekeeping before we leave. If anyone would like to be on our mailing list and you are not already, we have a sign-up sheet at the back table. And I really want to thank all of our participants, people who asked questions. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate that you showed up tonight. And to Rhonda, you did a
I speak for William and I that we'll be around for questions too. So if you have a question that we did or something you want us to clarify, we would love to stick around and answer.
I'll get yelled at too if I don't push my website. Make sure you grab one of my cards on the way out. Thank you so much.